Hello and welcome to Center of Weirdness, the weird podcast about very weird stuff, but mostly it's just about weird TV episodes. I'm Josh, and joining me as always is Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, Josh. Hey, everybody.
I could have called you Space Face Skinner.
Space Face is back.
That's a hard thing to say. Space Face Skinner. Space Face Skinner. Space
That's
Face
the
Skinner.
only reason I don't go by it. Otherwise, it'd be on my tombstone.
So after our triumphant return earlier this month, we're back again to discuss NightMan once more. Season 1, episode 18, Bad to the Bone. As we mentioned on the last episode, this is the sequel episode to the episode that we covered last time on the show. I cannot remember what the fuck that was even called. What was that episode called?
I don't know.
Oh, Face to Face. Face to Face. That's right. And this one is called Bad to the Bone, which is kind of doesn't work.
Why is it called that?
I don't know.
Because the bad guy is a bad guy?
I guess.
Maybe because the episode's bad to the bone.
Yeah, the episode is bad.
This is my favorite FMV series of games that never existed.
There is legitimately a shot of and this happens a lot in the car scenes, but there is legitimately a shot in this episode of Johnny getting into his purple Prowler that looks like a shot from an FMV game. It has the little like pixely edges around him where the green screen isn't quite right. And it just looks so much like an FMV game. If you put like a slight pixel filter over it, it would just look like a game.
Fuck, man, this show
should have been a NightMan FMV game.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, it's not enough that this show is the premier outlet for the Prowler car, but it also, to make it even more nutty, should be like the biggest tie-in for the 3DO.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, the Prowler is a plot CDI point in this one.
Oh, it's so the Prowler is a plot point finally in this one. This fucking car. There is a lot of music in this episode.
Yeah.
But this episode has the great thing you want in a sequel episode where a hero faces somebody with a certain power for the second time in fairly recent history.
Yeah.
Where they have learned nothing.
Well,
literally, the character who was impersonated by the shapeshifter last time does not believe that someone can be impersonated by a shapeshifter.
Yeah. So this episode was from February of 98, February 23rd. So actually not that far from the day that we're releasing this episode. This should be out on February 20th. And this we're almost to, let's see, what would the anniversary of this be? Let's see. We're almost to the 25th anniversry of Bad to the Bone.
Anniversary of Bad to the Bone, NightMan episodes 18 season 1.
So yeah, this aired in February. The previous episode that we covered last time aired in looks like October. It was the October 27th, our Halloween episode. So not that far, like not that many months between the two. So, you know, it's not like it's been, I mean, you could say who knows how long it's been in the timeline of the show, but if not that long if you were watching the show on a regular basis. And I think the show does it does a bad thing. It does many bad things, but one of the bad things is that you reveal exactly what is going on before the show even begins. You don't have any dramatic tension or anything at all because you give us a 2.5 minute breakdown of the previous episode at the beginning of this episode. And it doesn't just say previously on, it says, before we begin, here are some scenes from NightMan's previous encounter.
So this, once again, kind of like the first episode, I had a complaint about this, and one of my running complaints on the podcast about plots. I always hate when it is a mystery plot where the audience knows what happened minute one
Yeah.
of the episode, and then we had to spend 45 minutes waiting for the cast to catch up to what we know. It's very frustrating and it's not engaging, but TV does this all the fucking time. 2, this is a werewolf plot.
Yeah, kind of. It is like, I don't know if I killed that person. I can't be sure if I was in control at the time.
Yeah, like there's an entire scene where Johnny Domino, who is being impersonated by Spaceface, and Spaceface is killing people. There's a scene where Johnny Domino is going to a doctor for his blackouts from his Havana syndrome that Fidel Castro was giving him. And the doctor gives his whole speech, like this whole weird story about this man killing his mother-in-law while sleepwalking, which is, this guy just made this shit up. That's his source. Like, I can't wait for say, like, yeah, that's the fucking plot of every werewolf movie. A guy blacks out, finds out, like, wakes up with blood on his pajamas. This is a fucking werewolf plot.
Yeah.
But I kept waiting for someone to say, like, hey, this shit that keeps happening to me sure seems like a werewolf movie.
Well, like, I think that, yes, how many...
And he kind of looks like a werewolf with that hair.
A little bit. How many people were watching this on a regular basis? I have no idea. I don't think that it did very well in the ratings. It's amazing that they had 2 seasons, probably because there was probably some contract thing that, like, basically they worked it out so they had to get 2 seasons, because I cannot imagine this had enough of a market share to actually, like,
it's on streaming in any fashion, like this, and on DVD back in the day.
Sure.
This show has no cultural imprint.
No, not at all. Like, the character didn't. It's, if we just stand back and think about how fucking wild it is that there were 2 seasons, so 44-ish episodes of a NightMan TV series, a third-rate, low-tiered Malibu Comics character who got purchased by Marvel, and then they basically haven't done anything with him, as far as I know. But, like, how this guy got 40-something episodes of a television series when you have, like, other bigger characters who have been in no media, like television media whatsoever. They haven't appeared on a Marvel show or a DC show. They haven't appeared in, all these things. And it's like, how did NightMan get 44 episodes of a show? And, like, what I just, it's kind of insane to me with as much comic properties as we have right now. And this was one of the first big ones to appear on television. Like, cause this is 98. So this is around, like, this is around the time of, like, the Blade movie, when that gets, like, really big and that starts making people think about comic book movies a little bit more seriously now. Like, it's just wild to me that is, like, that happened.
What is amazing to me in a lot of ways, one, the Darkman TV show never got made, and this got made. 2, like, all we had to hear about pre-Blade, especially post X-Men and Spider-Man, was like, finally they're making good and actually making period comic book property shows and movies. And it's like, the geeks were this incredibly put upon group online, and even in the 90s and whatnot, of, like, they don't make anything for us. TV is never made for us. We don't have anything. My comics never get translated to anything good, blah, blah, blah. And yet no one remembers this. Like,
no,
there's no one who go like, well, at least there was NightMan. I was desperate for anything superhero on TV because there was nothing else. So I watched NightMan, and I put up with it, and I liked what I liked out of it. And the sax music was great. No one has that. I'm sure Amazon reviews have a few people who did that.
Amazon
the biggest
reviews
are the craziest. If you
look at like the kind of, I think the 90s was a weird time of, like, kind of scraping the barrel for, like, weird comic characters to do, because, like, obviously there were
Phantom.
Batman movies that happened, but yes, the Phantom, the Crow, the Shadow, the Mask. I think
there was
the Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Spawn was probably the biggest of the 90s because it was a fairly popular, well-known comic. But then you also have Judge Dredd, Barbed Wire. It's so weird to me that those were the big Tank Girl. Like those were the big superhero movies, the comic book movies that we got during the 90s. And then Blade came in 98 and kind of started to usher in this whole thing because Spider-Man comes along like in early 2000, X-Men's around 2000s, like, and then it just starts blowing up and becoming this huge thing where I couldn't even imagine them doing another Mask movie or doing another The Shadow movie or The Phantom. Like they're gonna make another Spawn, they're gonna make another Crow, they're gonna make another Blade, but like it's so weird to me that NightMan got a 44 episode run.
We'll never smash evil again.
I'm waiting for Marvel to introduce NightMan in like phase 9 or 10 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
He better play the fucking saxophone. That's all I'm telling you. No, there was a real sense of like, so Batman 89 happened, and like the lesson was, hey, people love old timey stuff.
Sure,
people love Art Deco,
yeah,
and like
Gothic architecture.
Gothic stuff, Gothic stuff. Like the idea was like, hey, the Shadow was that time frame. It's like, that's, what are you talking about? And there was really a sense like you couldn't, besides I'm sure rights were tied up and stuff, but like you couldn't bring the big names to TV or movies. It wouldn't work. So you brought these minor characters for cheaper or for that could damage the product, the name and IP less. And he tried those instead. And people fucking love Tank Girl. And the kangaroos stuff. And Jet Girl, who was also in Tank Girl.
Yeah. But anyway, so like that's just to kind of put it in this weird sort of historical context. But it's just so strange that this thing exists.
Like we said before, the fact that this is a superhero show, had this many episodes, was on TV in America, it aired, it's on DVD, it's on streaming. It has an embarrassingly bad cameo by Donald fucking Trump in that episode we covered last time, and yet has not surfaced. People have so little memory of it, it is not passed around to laugh at. Is incredible.
Yeah, it's just,
and we do not have the influence to cause that to happen.
No, I mean, give it time, and someone will cover the face-to-face episode with Trump in it, like when he runs again in 2024 or so, whatever.
When he's president, the 47th president. Yeah. What is the math of that, anyways?
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I don't know if you revert to the presidential number that you were, or if you become the new like a new number. I don't know if that's. I'm sure that's happened at some point in history, but.
I'm not looking it up though.
Yeah, this is the show where we discuss NightMan. We do not discuss presidential politics.
Right. But like, I mean, hey, like you can't even like now, like you wouldn't, if you don't do things right, like if you take a B- C+ character, you can give the biggest star in the world and the biggest budget in the world. And
who would play NightMan now? Let's see.
Well, it wouldn't be fucking The Rock, I tell you right now, because you can throw all the money at the world at the wrong tone.
Oh God, the guy that immediately popped into my head for this ridiculous revamp of NightMan. I don't know why this dude immediately popped into my head, but he did. Jeremy Allen White from The Bear would be great as NightMan. If you look him up, he totally could make that work.
The haircut, is the hair good?
It's yeah. He's got good hair. I think he could totally make it work. I think he's.
We get to one of the Big Bang Theory kids.
Johnny Galecki as NightMan.
Johnny Galecki as NightMan. It looks like he could hold a saxophone.
Young Sheldon as NightMan. That would be good. He could play him in the flashbacks.
Isn't it weird someday that we're gonna be like, hey, remember this actor who's really popular now in serious things used to be Young Sheldon?
So, all right, let's get into the episode proper. But I mean, before we do though, we do have to talk about something we didn't talk about last time in the intro, because it hasn't come up in either of the episodes that we've covered. But in the intro, he shows off this this little trick that he has so that he can go out to be NightMan and do superhero stuff, while still appearing to be at the House of Soul, which is this little hologram thing that he has where he can hit a button and turn on a hologram of him playing saxophone on the stage while he goes out and does his NightMan business. And they do use this from time to time in the show, and it's very poorly deployed because basically he has no banter. He just plays the saxophone, and then when he's done, a curtain closes around him.
He could have used this episode instead of going in the back to lay down and just ending the show and hurting the radio show that's at the back. He could have said, I'm going to take a shit. I'll be right back. And then like 4 seconds later, the hologram walks out and starts playing.
Yeah. The hologram
and
doesn't
then
move.
we'd have 3 Nightmen.
The hologram doesn't move. It just stands in place. So basically a curtain opens, he's there playing, and then when he's done, the curtain closes.
Like the Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes. They don't explain how it works or anything like that because, of course, they don't. But it's just very funny that he has this magic gadget that he uses. So anyway,
I love his powers and how he doesn't use them. I love that his power to hear the evil thoughts of man, which is his main power.
Yeah, it's his only power.
His only power. Everything else is just the fucking suit, which has a very weak battery. Everything else is just anyone could do. Like, say, somebody who is a space face could just take over everything else he does besides the fact he can hear people's thoughts. This is the perfect power to fight someone who can look like anyone, and yet he has never, over 2 episodes, used it specifically on Space Face. He finally uses it on someone who is related to Space Face. Way too late. He was going to find Space Face anyways, but absolutely, at some point, over 2 episodes, he should have saw somebody who looked like somebody he knows, and he read their evil thoughts, and it's Space Face. This is exactly what a superhero who can hear the evil thoughts of man versus someone who can look like anyone would do. Yet they do not use it in 2 episodes against Space Face.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like, normally you would do a sequel thing and you'd be like, all right, we're going to bring this villain back and we're going to like really make use of the potential for good dramatic conflict between these two. This guy who can look like anyone, this guy who can read the evil thoughts so he won't be fooled by it. But also we're going to work in this whole like werewolf type plot, not knowing if he's a murderer or anything like that. Like, yeah, we're going to do all that. It's going to be great. And then they just fumble it completely throughout the episode. So
this episode is vomited on the floor.
So, all right. So let's talk about it. So Johnny's doing his thing. And he's
for a while.
Yeah. He's out driving. And they have a House of Soul bit, of course, but then he goes out driving and he's listening to some shitty 90s fart rock about how it's, just another day. And then he switches it over to some cool jazz because he's a cool dude. And he happens to see a woman who is pushing her car. And he stops to help her out. He helps her by helping her push her car about 3 feet. I don't really know what the point of that was. Like, they don't go anywhere with it. I guess they push it out of the fire area, like away from a hydrant.
Maybe like it's like to be legally parked, she had to be like 10 feet away from the corner, and she was 9.75 feet away from the corner.
I guess that's what it was, because they really barely move it. And
I think they legitimately couldn't move it.
So she immediately recognizes him, of course. He's like, oh, I'm Johnny. And she's like, oh, Johnny Domino from the House of Soul? Because, of course.
He's on the radio every weekend.
Apparently. We'll get to that. I don't understand that at all. But so he's like, well, I'm, where are you going? And she tells him, and he's like, well, I'm going that way. I'm going to Furton's Cafe. Because apparently this is a cool little spot. So he's like, you want to go with me? And then she's like, yeah, of course. So they go to this cafe, which we don't see inside. We just see the outside shot of a building that says diner, which they could have just called it Furton's Diner, but no, they said Furton's Cafe. And they apparently have a great time and eat a good meal because they pull up in front of her apartment and they talk about the steak and eggs they had. And he says something about like he says something about how it was really great, and she's like, well, now I'll have to go to the gym and work out for 8 hours to get rid of all that. And it's like, you just ate a plate full of protein. I'm sure you're gonna be fine.
I mean, like it's unstated. Like, we had steak and eggs, breakfast of champions, and also 1,000 pancakes because the NightMan and her are hog beasts.
So they go to her apartment. He walks her in. And he's like, I got a bit of a headache, so I'm not going to come
Fuck you.
inside tonight. Also, I'm not going to enter your apartment.
I love that he Johnny Domino is so proficient that he is the one who begs off with a headache.
Yeah, he says it's not, and she makes a comment about how that's supposed to be her line, and he's like, well, I wish this was your headache because it's a bad one. And he goes back out into his car and just sort of passes out in the car. And then we see the woman in her apartment. She hears a knock at the door and she opens it, and Johnny is there. And she's like, oh, let me guess, you had car trouble. And he's like, well, no, I actually forgot something. And she's like, what's that? And he says this as he proceeds to strangle her with her necklace.
It's so silly looking. There was a sketch on the old Conan show back on late night with one of his satellite TV channels. And it was the jump and choke channel where some guy would just jump in a scene and go, time to choke, and then choke somebody. And it is with all that subtlety when he chokes anybody in this episode.
So like, this is the moment where if you hadn't gotten that 2.5 minute refresher on who Spaceface was, you could be maybe a little surprised or a little concerned about Johnny Domino, or maybe it would slowly start to trigger like, Johnny can't be doing that. Maybe it's something else. Maybe Spaceface is back. I don't know. Like, if you're a big NightMan fan, you could really be thinking about this and trying to figure out what direction they're going to go in. Like, who could be doing this? What's happening to Johnny? Why is he potentially killing this woman? Why does he not remember it? What's going on? Like
a werewolf movie.
Yes, exactly. Like, all of that could be a fun way to create dramatic tension. And I kind of wonder if, like, did the producers or the network people basically say, you have to put in this previously on bit, otherwise, because we don't want people to be worried that our hero is murdering women. Like, we can't have that, even that little bit of ambiguity for even a second before we reveal what's going on, because if we don't, people might tune away because they're like, I don't want to see my hero murdering people.
I mean, you always have to, what's the best way of putting this? If you were writing for wrestling, you have to book for the dumbest person in the room, which is usually pretty dumb.
Of course.
So you have to make it real clear in case there's somebody watching and they're just 5 minutes of the show, like, I cannot watch NightMan anymore now that the writers have turned the show into NightMan being a murderer. And they never, ever, 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 ever find out that perhaps NightMan was a werewolf.
Yeah,
Is there any episode where he turns into a werewolf?
There are some episodes where he fights like some beastly creatures that I think they're kind of werewolf adjacent, but I don't know if there's any where he turns into a werewolf.
He should.
There are some beastly type things. Yes, that would make sense if the NightMan became a beast. Oh, actually,
or at least fought the beasts.
Actually, yes, because there is. I think we talked about it. I think a little bit in the previous episode, but he meets Manimal, and Manimal does turn into like a bunch of animals to fight some people. But I think there is an episode where there's like some sort of beastly creature that he fights. Maybe it's a werewolf, or maybe it's some sort of like creature from another dimension or something. I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, so he wakes up in his car and then he goes home, and the cops find the body and her car, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And then we get our reveal of Space Face and his girlfriend Sam, and their scenes in this episode pretty much play out the exact same way for the 3 or 4 scenes they have together in this, which is them talking about why they're in a relationship together.
This is like, somebody really thinks this is great because they did a little bit of it in the first episode. And by a little bit, I mean a little bit more than you actually would want. It is every single scene in the show is about how they actually kind of hate each other, but they like each other more than they hate everyone else, or they like how much they hate them. It ends up with her thrown in a trunk by the main character. So I think we're supposed to hate her more than we hate Space Face.
Yeah, maybe. I don't like, because they keep painting her as like a money grubber, basically. Like she's only with him for the money, and
Then why
he's in
doesn't
it
he
for the
fucking rob
thrill, I
things?
guess. I don't know.
What is he in it for? Like when he's about to die up in the air, he's doing is laughing. I wish they had some. You know how the Invisible Man, the Hollow Man, the main one of the main things about it is that the formula makes you go crazy,
Yeah.
right? Because you can't close your eyes anymore, blah blah blah, right? And just in general, they need some reason why Space Face, like the beating he took in the prison, or the technology, or the pain he went through, or something drove him insane and makes him laugh a lot more. He's just a crooked finance guy. Why is he so crazy? Why is he so willing to kill random women? Why does he know that if he falls from great heights into water, that he will always survive?
I don't.
He's not afraid at
no.
all of dying from falling
No.
from great heights.
It just
But
feels
we're not
like
told that he has any special powers. He can just change his hair now, by the way.
yeah.
Before in episode 1 and the first episode, they gave lip service to the fact that he had to wear wigs. He didn't, because he didn't in a bunch of other scenes, but they mentioned it once. In this episode, they mentioned that he has to change his voice to sound like Johnny Domino, that he's been working on it, even though in episode 1, he mimicked his voice perfectly the first time he ever tried it. But now he can change his hair at will without any explanation. I wish they would have given no explanation for anything rather than give explanation to some things and then not others. Also, he has a real personal issue with Johnny Domino. But if you really think back to the first episode, he has almost nothing to do with Johnny Domino.
Yeah, not until the end do they actually fight, and he fights him when he's dressed as NightMan. So
I thought maybe he realized he was NightMan.
Yeah.
You looked at NightMan face to face and you knew Johnny Domino.
Yeah.
And if you were a master of knowing the shape of face, because you can just look at someone and become somebody, you would go like, oh, it's fucking clearly Johnny Domino with a mask on. It sounds like him, and that haircut's the only guy like that. And look at the fucking size of that guy. But he doesn't, because we find out later he is very, 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 very slowly told that Johnny Domino is NightMan. I'm like, really? What is his fucking problem? Like, his problem was with Lieutenant Dan and NightMan's dad.
yes.
But in this episode, he doesn't give a shit about
No, he's completely indifferent to them. He did his first mission failed tremendously, so now he doesn't give a shit. Basically, his plan is he wants to get Johnny framed for murder so that Lieutenant Dan has to arrest Johnny and put him in jail, and basically that will ruin Frank's life because his son is in jail, I guess.
In theory, this would also really hurt Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah.
However,
but he doesn't seem to
Dan
care. He thinks
super-
Johnny's the murderer, so he's all about putting him in jail.
He doesn't give a shit. He thinks he never believes Johnny isn't the murderer. The episode ends with him pretty much saying, I only have your word that you're not the murderer because some guy I think is dead who did the exact fucking same thing to me did this, but I have no evidence as such other than you saying that. And so there's still 2 dead women with no suspect and no body of the criminal, I get that they have a adversarial friendship. He at no point seems to have any emotional trauma or worry. He would so quickly throw Johnny Domino in jail and never think about him again. It's like, why even give this guy friends?
Yeah.
Why even give Johnny Domino friends if he has no charisma, no chemistry with his best friend?
Yeah.
His dad looks like he's from old grumpy old man, and he eats white rice, plain as a fucking box of cereal, and he's frenemies with Lieutenant Dan. But by frenemies, I mean Lieutenant Dan doesn't give a single shit about him.
Well, so
but he just hangs out with them.
This is kind of interesting because that's a good point that you bring up, because like up to this point, I mean, I don't know, like before this whole thing starts, I don't know that Johnny has any friends like other than maybe the lady that runs like Jessica, who runs the House of Soul and who broadcasts, because he meets Raleigh in the pilot. So like he meets him because he gets the suit from him, and his dad used to be partners with Lieutenant Dan. So like I guess they're sort of like, I mean, he has his dad obviously, but like Lieutenant Dan is not his buddy. Like they just know each other because they were, you know, he and his dad work together. So like they're not friendly, and it's hard to tell how old Lieutenant Dan actually is. Like if he's
kind
about
of portrayed as like if he's in between Dad and Domino.
Yeah, he's like right in the middle of them. So he's like older than Johnny but younger than Frank. So he's kind of
have to understand though, like Johnny used to be a piece of shit.
Apparently.
There is a scene in this episode where they look so ready to slop up those steaks.
So let's see where we're at. So basically Johnny, he's been talking about these headaches, and he and Raleigh have this very combative scene where Raleigh's like, you should go talk to this doctor who knows about your condition and knows about, like, because this Dr. Walton guy he meets in the first episode, and he kind of tells him like and helps him understand his powers. Like he says that he's tuned to the frequency of evil. And so he knows about, you know, Johnny's abilities. I don't know if he knows that he's NightMan, but he knows that he has a special ability. So he's like, you should go see him and see what he says. And Johnny's like, maybe I'll go later. Maybe I'll do it later. I'm busy right now polishing my saxophone. Not a euphemism. And then we see kind of the thing that Spaceface is using, which is basically this little tiny garage door opener that can fire a microwave beam out into Johnny's brain and put him to sleep.
It is so like this. If you have this power, I mean, why even have the Spaceface power? They'd be fucking knocking people out left and right.
Well, he says he got that device from Russia. So it's like a Russian weapon that they were developing that apparently is very well honed now, that it can work on some guy and not interfere with anyone else in the vicinity.
What's also fantastic about it is that shooting microwaves in a concentrated beam at his brain, and it gets him a headache and knocks him out. This guy in literally, but if you look at the show, the most vibrant, vital man on the planet.
Yeah,
right? Like
they call him a Greek god.
Like everyone can't get like people. There's a person who is giving him up as a suspect for a murder, giving like picture, giving a description of him, and giving a thing, and they can't help but mention, by the way, this guy is building a brick shit house, and he's the most handsome man I've ever seen. So this guy who is absolutely the most virile man, in perfect health, the perfect age, the perfect sax player, can go all night on the sax. He can be knocked the fuck out by 3 seconds of this thing, and then go to the doctor, and the doctor says, you seem fine, must be something weird. No, it would give him fucking cancer so fucking quickly. His brain like for it to work, it would have to destroy the DNA, the chromosomes in his brain.
I mean, I love that this is also a guy who was struck by lightning and had his brain changed in a certain way. So I feel like it would impact him even worse because he already has this weird brain issue.
And they kind of question that because he's like, the lightning bolt changed my brain. So like, who knows what the fuck else happened? Maybe I have cancer. But like, it would have been so funny if Space Face accidentally gave him a second power.
That would have been amazing. Like if they had,
because he has only one power,
or if it had just
is the suit.
What would have been great is if it not only had it like messed with his brain, but also it took his power. Like it made his power not work. So then you could have Space Face.
That would require him to be actively using his power.
True, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it seems like he doesn't have any control over the power. Like, it just happens when he touches someone. But, like, what if you had it so that we don't know that it's Space Face. We don't know that he's not killing these people. And then he also says, like, I can't read anyone anymore. The power's not coming through. And then you're like, oh, shit, what's going on? And then you reveal, oh, it's Space Face who's pretending to be Johnny, but also he has a device that is screwing with Johnny's powers. Like,
what I think is incredible is not brought up. Is like you had mentioned that the other. To me, it's amazing that his only real power is he can rebuild the evil thoughts of men.
Yeah.
He almost never uses everything else is just the suit, so it could be fucking anyone, right?
Yeah.
Really, like he wasn't given an amazing power that he has to use.
I think in the comics he also doesn't sleep much. I think that's one of the other abilities.
Yeah, in the show, does he not sleep much? Because otherwise, Space Face gave him his first nap in months.
Yeah. So, there is we get the whole scene that we alluded to with this woman from the diner. Fern is her name. She comes in and reveals that she saw this hot man and this woman there, and then she goes and meets with the sketch artist. We see the sketch a little bit later. It looks like the human beast from Beauty and the Beast when he becomes human again.
Which then we would realize that is exactly what the actor
looks and that's kind of what Johnny looks like. We do see Frank eating just some plain white rice while Raleigh enjoys some Chinese food. Maybe it looks like maybe some orange chicken or something. They do make a crack about MSG because that was the height of comedy in the 90s.
We had a conversation among ourselves about how we're like having been alive then it was so annoying that it was so assumed as fact that MSG had some chemical in it that gave white people headaches.
Yeah,
as opposed to it's just a chemical seasoning.
Weirdly
like
enough,
everything is a chemical.
Yeah, weirdly enough, in my health class, we had to pick like some. I can't remember the main point of the project, but we had to write something about like a food additive or a food some sort of food thing, and I somehow got MSG. I had to write a report about MSG. I have no idea what I said in it. I cannot remember anything about it, but I don't know if I came down on I think I must have come down on the side of it not being good because that was the prevailing wisdom at the time.
For no reason other than racism.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I really do think. And then you had all of these Asian restaurants that had to put up things in their windows saying that no MSG in our food, just to appease white people so that they would come in and keep their business running.
We've made our food less delicious.
Yeah,
and that's how you to this day, to a degree, it's how you get mainstream white America into your restaurant is by promoting, hey, we have a blander, more boring version of this for you. Welcome to Applebee's. We're eating good in the neighborhood, my friend.
Yeah. All flavor has been sucked out. I mean, if people weren't like, if you could disguise like a bland, tasteless blob as something else and sell it to the Midwest, I mean, I think it would do very well.
I mean, Frank in his show would be like, wow, cool. Just the rice, please. Steam that shit up. And rice is delicious.
Yeah.
But
so
man, that was a lot of white rice for one plate. And that's I've had white rice as a meal.
So we get a long montage around this point of Johnny playing the sax, really long montage, and this is when we learn that Jessica, who goes by the on-air name Nightbird, is broadcasting live from the House of Soul over the radio, and I guess they're broadcasting the performance. And then apparently this is a thing that happens on a regular basis at this place.
I've I've heard, I've listened to, back when I listened to radio before I had literally any other option in my life. Uh, they would do a show from a local venue every now and then to promote that venue, but like it wasn't, there wasn't a house show from the same venue all the time. That was, like I said, how exciting can it be? And we have characters constantly telling you like, "Oh, I go to your show, Johnny, every as I save up all the time to be able to to afford this cover charge that is so expensive. So I can only go so many times a week, but I would go out more often if I could afford it." But like, oh wow, I can't wait to hear live adult contemporary music. Like especially at this point, this is already old folk music. Like this is already your parents' music. This is like Kenny G's peak has passed, and even that wasn't listened to by like people in their 20s.
Yeah. It's not no. It
There's
just
there's one song that is so low energy, and it's one where Space Face comes into the place to wearing a disguise of a goatee, trying to look like he's like iPod era Bono.
he's a beatnik without a beret, basically. Like
This song is going on for like 5 fucking minutes, and it's just this like dentist chair saxophone. Who would ever pay to go live to hear something you could hear in a fucking elevator?
yeah, it's so uh so Space Face is there with his bad goatee, and this is ridiculous because he can change his appearance at will to
He
anyone
could
that he
look like
wants.
Bono if he wanted to.
This would have been a perfect time for them to get another weird cameo in, but they choose not to. And they spot a woman at the bar who apparently is goo goo gaga for Johnny. And because he's the hottest man in Bay City. And so they go give her a note that Johnny wants to meet her. So Space Face uses
They're gonna kill her.
yeah, Space Face uses his remote control to give Johnny a headache, and he's just like, "Well, I'm gonna take a break," and he goes to lay down, and the woman goes outside, and she's looking for Johnny, and he's hanging out in an alleyway, and he pops out and goes, "Here's Johnny," and then chokes her with her scarf, just right in public, right out in the open, next to the valet stand. No subtlety at all for Space Face here, but he strangles this woman and hides her body and runs off just as Frank pulls up and sees him, thinking that it's Johnny, but he doesn't he doesn't reveal to Frank what happened. Like he doesn't say that I saw Johnny. He just says I didn't see anything suspicious, and Lieutenant Dan doesn't really believe him, of course, but he just sort of lets it go. And yeah, Frank confronts Johnny and is like, "Hey, what's going on?" And of course, Johnny doesn't remember anything and doesn't know what he's talking about. But then he's like, "All right, I'll go to the doctor." And this is when we get all the shit about the guy who blacked out and woke up in the middle of the night and killed someone and didn't, it's all a bunch of garbage, and the doctor seems like he's drunk halfway through this scene.
It's absolutely a werewolf scene, but also it's really long, and a guy killing his mother-in-law in while sleepwalking really feels like a writer's room laugh. Like,
Yeah.
boy, I wish I had a excuse that get me out of bloodily murdering my mother-in-law in the middle of the night. What a witch.
Yeah, this doctor guy is kind of like an off-brand Dr. Loomis from Halloween. He just is he's a little old Englishman who is he's a funny little guy. He appears in a couple episodes. And his last film in 2003 was a movie called The Low Budget Time Machine, which I love the
How
title
low
of that.
budget?
I love that. Yeah, the dude had a lot of. Oh man, he was in Thunder in Paradise 3. Actually, he's in all 3 Thunder in Paradise movies.
Must be lucky, man. Then he must have had chats on set with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, apparently he played Edward Whittaker in the entirety. So like the 3 movies plus the television series, which we gotta watch. We gotta watch an episode of Thunder in Paradise.
I bet it's much worse than NightMan. It has a boat instead of a prowler.
Man, he's in all 22 episodes of that. Of Thunder in Paradise, along with Jimmy Hart, who's in 16 episodes. Brutus the Barber Beefcake is in 14.
Weird. It's like he got jobs for his buddies. He got paid very, very well for that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a preview of things to come. We probably will be covering an episode of Thunder in Paradise if we can figure out a way to watch it. That's a show that absolutely needs to be streaming if it isn't. But yeah, so anyway, Johnny doesn't really know what's going on, but he's still trying to figure it out. We get another witness who shows up at the station. This is our drummer friend Ginger, who's named after Ginger Baker, the drummer from Cream, and he and Dan bond over their love of Clapton and his current views. And the guy basically says like, hey, I saw these people at this diner and they drove away in a cool purple car, and he just so happens to have a magazine with him, like what, Prowler Monthly or whatever the fuck that was.
I like they were like, not many of those in town. Like, there's not many Prowlers on the planet Earth sold.
Yeah, and of course this triggers Dan to realize, like, I only know one person with that car, and I only know of one of those cars in town, so definitely got to be Johnny. And then, of course, it turns out that the drummer is Space Face.
Once again, he has to change back to Space Face while still in the room he was in.
Yeah, of course. He walks out into the hallway of the police station and turns into Bridges. But again, no one knows what Bridges looks like. So I guess it's fine. Like, it's weird because they don't ever talk about what he looks like now because his face was destroyed in prison, which is why he looks the way he currently does.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, that's the thing. If they actually found his body, which they won't, because he's apparently invincible with his space face. Could they even ID him?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, that's the thing, is nobody knows what this dude looks like in his current state, except his girlfriend, who is now in police custody as of the end of this episode. But like, it's ridiculous. So
it's one of those weird like half ideas they had in episode 1, which is absolutely not followed up in this one.
No,
she even talks about the girlfriend talks about how like, oh, I like your original evil face better.
Yeah, I like your cruelly handsome face,
which is once again is not his original face.
No. I wish that we had gotten a picture of what he previously looked like. Like I really
previously on your face.
Yeah, I wish that there had been a photo of what his original face looked like before it was smashed in by some prisoner. And so Raleigh comes in and fake Johnny is inside the apartment. He's trying to plant evidence. And I think he does plant the woman's necklace from the first kill in Johnny's car, and then he's planting the scarf in Johnny's apartment from the second kill. And Raleigh comes in and starts talking to fake Johnny about the revisions to the suit that he made. And Space Face doesn't know what the fuck's going on, but he walks into the other room and Raleigh basically just reveals everything about NightMan. He reveals this suit, shows him everything, and Space Face, of course, is like, wow, that's like I'm seeing it for the first time. It's really wild.
And then he started talking about himself in the third person, and still, like, he doesn't, like, the fact how far he has to go as far as like never questioning this, to the point where at one point, NightMan tries to kill him, and he still doesn't realize it's not his friend.
Yeah, it's really weird that you would have an encounter with a person who can change their appearance. And you know this. You know that this person exists. You know that they didn't die the last time you met with them. And yet, it doesn't immediately register like, oh, this is probably a fake guy. Like, if only Raleigh had said, wait a minute, you're not really NightMan, or you're not really Johnny, are you? And then the guy would be like, haha, no. Like, it would be something. It would at least give that character some sort of intelligence. But like, as it is, Raleigh's just an idiot, and he tells him all about the suit. He tells him like, oh, your brain is all messed up, so we should practice some more on it. And so NightMan goes out, or fake NightMan, I guess now, fake Johnny, goes out and flies around with the suit, picks it up real easy. So it makes me think that this suit is incredibly simple to operate.
It must be, because moving within 3 dimensions without like an up or down, very difficult for how our brains work.
Yeah, and this apparently you just do it by hitting a button on your belt and you just fly up and down. So it's pretty wild that this guy who has no experience with this and is seeing it for the first time is able to just get up and fly in it with no issues, and also shoot laser beams later on and like have no problems at all.
Yeah, he figured out the eye laser thing. Like, hey, have the microwaves give Johnny real eye lasers.
Sure. So they land, and Space Face punches out Raleigh. And down in the garage, as Johnny returns, the real Johnny, Sam sees this and uses the garage door opener mind scrambler on him, and he falls down and begins trembling like he got a vaccine a couple months ago. And she finally runs over and like wakes him up, and finally he gets his reading from her with his powers and realizes who she is, realizes that she's working for Bridges, because up to this point, he didn't know who she was. He didn't know that Bridges had a girlfriend or was involved with anyone. He had no idea of this.
She's gone to the club where he's performing. In fact, so did Space Face.
Yeah, it would feel like he should be able to get, I guess in the context of the show, his power only works if he touches someone physically. Like, they can't be touching him through cloth. He has to like skin on skin contact to get some sort of reading off of them.
Why did he become this huge, like have this secret network and build a flying suit? All because he has a very limited range power.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the suit is unrelated.
It is this far into the season, it is now stupid.
Yeah, well, the suit was developed by Raleigh for some like military contractors or something. So he just steals the prototype and uses it. So
I like that Raleigh makes a improved version of it, which immediately loses to the old backup version.
That's right. I forgot about that. He gives him the much improved version, which apparently they didn't improve the battery power on it, but he gives him
just like Apple.
Yeah, he gives him the new and improved suit, but thankfully, Johnny, now knowing who Sam is, locks her in a trunk and
when we never see her again.
Yeah, no, he puts her in a trunk. He punches out Lieutenant Dan, who shows up to arrest him. And doesn't explain, hey, I think Bridges is back and he's pretending to be me, because at least Dan would have some sort of concept of that, because he knows how bad Bridges is, I guess. I mean, up to this point, he was just a financial dude who didn't really do any actual crimes, but now has turned into a psychopathic murderer, again, which would be explained if we could learn like, oh, his brain got fucked up from getting his face smashed in and now he's a psycho, but they don't really bother with any of that.
In the first episode, when he goes to frame people, he shoots to wound.
Yes.
He never kills anybody. This one, he is like, there's a random person. I'm going to pick her to be dead. It's a big leap. But of course, even the characters in the show don't seem that concerned that two innocent people who, by complete random fate, died. They're not that upset. It was more important that Johnny is innocent than there are dead people.
Yeah.
Like they're laughing at the end. There are two dead people because of this, and they just don't stop. They have an inability to stop Spaceface. And I have one more thought on that at the end, but let's get through this entirely terrible fight.
So Johnny thankfully has a separate suit that he puts on, and he rescues Raleigh, who Spaceface drops. And he rescues him, and of course Raleigh doesn't understand what is going on. He is like, you almost dropped me and killed me. He's like, no, that wasn't me. And he's like, I'll explain later. And immediately that should go, oh yeah, I get it now. It's Bridges. He's back. I understand. I am your friend.
Or
I know.
Point up, and there's a second NightMan.
Yeah. So they go up and they have an aerial battle, which is very bad because it's basically, it reuses a lot of the same footage that they always use when NightMan's flying around, especially the very lazy tilt that he does. He leans to the side, I think is like, I'm going to drop down and fly lower now, but it's just so lazy looking.
It's so, there's such a lack of urgency and energy to every scene in the suit.
And there's they do some far off shots, some wide shots of the two NightMan in the screen, in the shot together. And instead of just, again, green screening the actors, because we know they like green screen, they could just have him stand there, film him from both sides, and then green screen him together. Or better yet, film him once and then just flip the footage. Who gives a shit if it doesn't look right? Like, just film the actual dude in the suit. But no, they painstakingly made little CG NightMen that look terrible. They look so bad. And it's so awful that they thought they should do this instead of just doing the thing that they were good at, which was, well, not good at, but they knew how to do, which was green screening a person out of a shot. Like, why did they create CG NightMen that look nothing like Johnny? They look like weird creatures.
So when this episode was pitched, they first should have said, hey, can we do this scene at the end and make it look good or even decent or like not laughably bad? And if the answer was no, we can't not make it look laughably bad, they just said, okay, we don't have to write it. We can do something else. Unfortunately, much like the fog in the first episode, unfortunately, they decided to go all out with it. The best of the shots, the best they can do is every now and then one of them will grunt, and then the screen will shake, and then a pair of legs will appear in front of the other NightMan and shove into his chest. They repeat a bunch of stuff. The fact that the bad guy is defeated by the fact that he has a low battery from carrying the sidekick makes no sense, because NightMan carries people all the time and his battery doesn't run out with this is like, what, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
It's stupid. It's they make sure we know which is which by having Spaceface NightMan laughing constantly.
I will give Matt McComb here some credit, because it is the most animated that he seems in the entire show, like in every episode.
Oh, I promise you, if you interviewed Matt McComb, what was your favorite episode? Well, it was the second Spaceface episode, because I got to play a bad guy and cut loose.
Yes, because he's having a good time. He's like, the way that Johnny is portrayed in this is he's so reserved and he doesn't seem to get excited. He doesn't seem to get like angry even. Like, it's weird. He has no real emotion. Like, it's very strange.
It is. And so he's uninteresting. And combine that with the fact that he just won't explain things to people all the time.
Yes.
It just comes off as nothing.
Like this is the sitcom plot line of if you just had a quick conversation, you could clear up this conflict in maybe 5 minutes, and this is exactly what would happen here. Like you could just have a quick conversation and it would be fine. But you choose not to do that. You choose to punch your friend in the stomach and run away.
So Space's battery runs out and he falls to his death again.
I guess.
I guess. Well, he doesn't come back this time, but like I'm sure he was planning to.
Yeah.
Which once again, and I thought like, hey, NightMan could have just went and caught him and then put him in jail.
Yeah, like he could have.
But instead he watches him fall again, which did not work the first time.
No.
And he needs the body to clear his name.
Yes, exactly. Like, why did he not get that? And also, if he is still alive, that means he has a NightMan suit.
Yes, which I'm sure they would. But a third terrible episode. But so we get a scene afterwards where all our good guys, Dan, Frank, NightMan, Sidekick, are all having dinner together and talking about it. And okay, Dan's like, I don't fucking believe you. I think you murdered him. Those women. Like, I don't like you. And he's like, I have 2 dead bodies and no thing. And you want to explain where he fell because he could. And like, he's like, what bridge did he fall off of? And they're like, oh, we don't know because he's like, he couldn't have fallen out of the sky. And they're like, I guess not. That'd be crazy. There are 2 dead people, and you didn't get the person who like you didn't. Dan saying he's trolled the bay and hasn't found the body for Bridges, and there are 2 dead people. There are 2 innocent dead people because of you. Because everyone at the table's fault. There are 2 dead people. At this point, if Dan is your friend, and he apparently is supposed to be, even though it does not seem like he is, and he is in on every one of your adventures, and this has now become a problem, there are 2 people who are no longer alive. Their parents have lost their child. Fucking tell that, Dan, you are fucking NightMan.
Yeah, it would be so easy.
You are a piece of shit at this point by laughing at it. You have to tell him you are fucking NightMan at this minute. You have to do it. Because the fact that he is more important to him to protect his secret identity, which did not save these 2 women, and in fact put them in danger. And you almost lost your suit, which has laser beams, to this bad guy who could have killed hundreds of people. And you will not tell the police officer I am NightMan for no goddamn reason.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, and I think that he never learns that. I'm pretty sure Dan never learns that he is NightMan, because again in season 2 he's just written out of the show because he's on vacation, and then they have a new cop on the show, so they basically just never reveal that, like, which would be interesting, like but they just don't even bother doing it.
It's so his flippancy about what happened, and the idea that it's more important to protect his secret identity from the person he works with.
Yeah.
On all the cases, his father's old partner, the person who's been involved in dozens of things that are only explained by you being NightMan. And you're so afraid, like, well, if I tell him, he'll have to arrest me or blah, 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 tell me I can't be NightMan. What good have you done? And also, like,
it's weird because it's like, if I think there's a few episodes later in the first season where they start to make references to the fact that they know NightMan exists, but it's like kind of one of those weird things where it's not
the bad of Gotham.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but they never really like get into it as much as they could. But then that would be the thing of like, oh, you have this cop who is trying to hunt down this vigilante, and you are trying to keep yourself hidden because you don't want him to know, but also like I know that he's my friend, but also I don't want to reveal myself to him, and et cetera, et cetera. Like you could make some fun conflict there of trying to keep your identity a secret while you're out there doing things. But like, again, he barely puts on the NightMan costume throughout the show. In this one, it takes what, 35 minutes before NightMan shows up. And that's when it's the bad guy pretending to be NightMan. So like, we don't even get real NightMan until about 10 minutes before the end of the episode.
With commercials.
Yeah.
Like, I know it was just all these things where, like, I understand that shows back then had to reset every single episode to a degree, even with some continuity, like Space Base is back again and everything. But like, the concept of the show is blah blah blah. No one knows he's NightMan except for X and X. So at the end of every episode, he has to make sure no one knows he's NightMan except for X and X. I'm like, you come off so flippant in this last conversation. And like, it's not like people die a lot in NightMan, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of murders. Like the first episode, once again, Space Face shot to wound, he didn't kill. There's two people who were completely, absolutely innocent who were brutally murdered. And it really comes across that Johnny Domino cares more that he's proven innocent than someone is held responsible for the death of two people. Like, it doesn't matter that they're dead and that Bridget wasn't caught. It's more important that he didn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, they're only props in Johnny Domino's world. Like, if you wanted to make this world where, like, it's revealed later, and I know they went into Cyberverse in season 2, but like, where it turns out Johnny Domino is in the fucking Matrix, or like he's a skinny geek who like is in a VR headset in his sick bed and who dreams himself as the perfect hunk. And he's like actually 65 years old because he thinks in this modern world with prowlers, there's that saxophone adult contemporary music is the hottest ticket in town.
Yeah.
But like where that would make sense, where he's like the center of the universe, where like it's more important that his plot and his hands are clean than anyone else actually gets like comeuppance or justice.
Yeah.
It just can't. Oh, no. They're like laughing about like what Bridgie fell off. Two people are fucking dead. Johnny Domino, you piece of shit. I don't care how handsome you are. I know the vaccine killed both these young ladies so early, but you have to take some part at fault because you didn't stop Bridges last time and you didn't use your fucking power to read minds.
Well, I think I want to talk about one more quick little thing, not related to the show exactly, but I think before we do that, we should put this on our scale of weirdness. I don't even know if we did it on the last episode. I cannot recall, honestly, but I don't think it really matters. I mean, we can just say that
NightMan's a 9 for just straight up every episode.
Sure. I agree with that. Just because it's so strange, like we talked about at the beginning, it's so strange that this thing existed at all.
There's so much saxophone in it. And by the way, the intro fucking bops.
Yes.
Like it's the best
for the
intro
season
song
one.
ever,
Season 1. Season 2 is trash.
Season 1. Yeah. But like the amount of saxophone within the running episode and scenes where like we see like silhouettes of himself over himself. It's just like, how is this pitched?
So I agree. So what about this? Do you want to do just the show in general as a 9? I think that's fair.
Like you give me any episode of this series and it's 9. Like,
okay,
it's always
fair,
9.
fair. From the FMV green screen to just the
Donald Trump,
weird saxophone to
weird sax,
the fact that he drives a prowler, like all of that. Yeah, definitely. So I stumbled upon the creator of NightMan's website, steveenglehart.com. This is a very old bare bones website. Like it's clear he made this.
Is it under construction? Is there like some kind of animated GIF that tells you that's under
so far,
construction?
no, but this feels like one of those things that's like very much built, many years ago at the beginning of web design and hasn't really been updated. The guy's worked on a lot of different comics. I mean, he's worked on some Batman comics, Avengers, Captain America. So he's been involved in actual like legit real things, but he also co-created NightMan, and he has this little passage. He has a couple of different pages dedicated to NightMan, and talks about how he had done the definitive Batman, apparently to him. He'd co-created Shadow Man, some character. But when Malibu asked me to co-create the Ultraverse and help populate it, I decided to go for the ultimate expression of the dark loner theme. The man who comes around at night, the Nightman. Wait, listen to this. He existed in a, quote, San Francisco of the mind. SF the way that it would be if the cool things from all its past, like Playland at the Beach, still existed today. It's the SF. It's the SF that held the Maltese Falcon and the one with the Transamerica Pyramid. I don't know what that is. And then he says the NightMan villains were one strong creation after another. Really blowing your own skirt up there.
Man, I've never been that confident about anything I've done in my life.
Yeah, he lists the characters out that he's proud of. Death Mask, Mangle, Guy Hunt, Rhiannon, Nikolai Apokoloff, Chalk, Rigoletto.
Did he really name
Bloody Fly
which character after the fucking Stevie Nicks? Which character?
Rhiannon.
Yeah.
Rhiannon started off as a villainess in the NightMan and ended up as a villainess in the NightMan. Okay. But a cool enough villainess to warrant a shot at her own series in Ultraverse premiere. If Malibu hadn't been destroyed by Marvel, she probably would have gotten her own series. For some reason,
man, they would have had fucking foil covers for that fucking premiere Malibu fucking shit.
For some reason, bad girls are a big draw. That's his commentary, of course. So he talks about all this. He said NightMan debuted on Halloween. He does the old spelling of Halloween where there's an apostrophe between the two E's.
I did that back in 1983.
And immediately got caught up in the company-wide breakthrough crossovers, but that was what made Malibu unique to the public and family for us as founding fathers. Anyway, apparently there's an animated series of Ultra Force where NightMan appears, so we might have to track that down and see if we can.
I've seen pictures.
We can watch that. Yeah, I've seen the pictures, but I've never seen the episode.
I'm sure it's true.
He was the only Ultra verse character to make the leap into live action. He wrote 5 episodes of the series, apparently. Or he wrote 3 episodes of the series, making it 5 Hollywood productions that he was involved in. And it has a bunch of covers of NightMan.
Hollywood productions.
And it certainly looks like NightMan fought a werewolf on more than a couple occasions, because there are several.
Good, he should.
There are several covers with him facing down with some sort of wolf-like creature. And he's
the ultimate expression of night.
Yeah.
He's the man who comes around at night.
NightMan also fought Wolverine at some point during.
I fought Wolverine at some point.
During some sort of crossover. And then I guess there was some weird thing where I guess there were 2 different versions of NightMan. So he got put into the Marvel universe and then also still had a Malibu book going. So he had 2 books happening simultaneously.
Like Space Face and NightMan together.
He didn't. I guess this was what Steve Englehart wanted to happen. I proposed to Marvel that there be 2 ongoing series about the NightMan, one a Malibu book and one a Marvel book. It would have been so cool and innovative, but they said no.
I wanted more of my stuff to be published, and it would have been awesome, according to me.
Yeah, and he says that the Malibu NightMan had made himself into a hero in a world that was just beginning to have heroes, and had achieved a certain level of notoriety with the public and camaraderie with the other Ultraverse characters. Now he was in a new universe where the heroes had been around forever, and they all knew each other very well, but they didn't know him. He had no social security record, no father, no girlfriend, no job. So how does he cope? That's the series that I want to do with Johnny Domino.
I really want an episode of NightMan where he goes to the office to get a social security number. But I've done that.
But yeah, so there's a lot of it looks like there were a couple issues of this Marvel NightMan versus Wolverine thing, or a couple different covers at least. He also apparently
he's got to beat Wolverine to get that SSN card.
He also apparently fights the Headless Horseman at some point. At least according to this cover. There is also a cover called Claws of the Wolf, where again he looks like he's fighting a wolf man. So
once again, he always should be fighting Wolfman.
And the guy with the that looks like the Headless Horseman apparently is Lord Pumpkin. That is.
And I think at that point is where we should hold off. We should end off on Lord Pumpkin because we're not going to top that.
No, we're not going to top Lord Pumpkin. But yeah, I think that's probably where we have to end off. Maybe we'll cover NightMan again. We'll cover the episode that was written by Steve with no changes to the script whatsoever. And I have seen this episode, and it's really funny. So we will probably have to cover the episode that he wrote at a future point. Maybe we'll pair that with the NightMan cartoon or something, and we'll talk about those. But yeah, I think this is the perfect place to wrap up our NightMan coverage for this month. We had a nice little theme month here in February, so that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it's always good to come back with in the middle of the night. We are the podcast that comes at night.
That's right. Yeah, we come at night for sure. But until next time, we're back coming at night again. I've been Josh.
I've been Skinner.
And we want you to keep it weird out there in the night while you're coming.
This show's broken us.
You've been listening to Center of Weirdness. If you like this show, rate and review us wherever you find it, but especially on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to every episode at centerofweird.com, where you can also find all of the old Predictocast episodes. And if you want to get in touch with us to tell us about a show we should cover, hit us up on Twitter at WeirdCenter. As always, thanks for listening.